pressing, watching, and we might as well roll
on this one.
Okay, and roll things.
Hi there, my name's Dan, and today we're going to talk about the Teradek RT lens control system. I've owned this for about a year and a half, and when I was looking to purchase it, I found there was very few resources online about what it was like to actually work with. I live in Australia, so it's very far away from America, so it makes it very difficult to do your homework and do your research, and even struggle to get your hands on new equipment before you actually invest in it. And particularly with the RT system being less popular than the RE or Preston system, that made it even more difficult for me to figure out the pros and cons and whether it would work for me. So I really had to rely on reaching out to a lot of ACs around the world to get their input before I actually decided to purchase it. So what I want to do is just to educate everyone, if you're thinking about buying this or if you're about to use it, just be nice to hopefully help you avoid all the challenges that myself and a few other colleagues faced when we were trying to buy and learn this. In future videos I'll deep dive into the technical side and some of the deep workflows of this system, but for now let's just focus on the overview of this kit. First up, we've got the Control.3 hand unit. 3 stands for 3 axes, whereas there's also the Control.1, which only does 1 axis. You've got your focus knob, you've got your iris slider, you've also got this joystick which you can map for your zoom control. You also notice we've got these two little A and B rolling wheels. It was intended for the red DSMC2 line, where there was a module that mounted onto the side of those cameras and you can control ISO and shutter. However, that's not really a thing anymore, so those are just kind of sitting there now as decoration. On the top we've got our big antenna, which is really amazing. You've also got this LEMO port. This is for when you're connecting to your small HD monitor. It comes with all the different cables no matter which small HD monitor you have, so you'll be sorted. On the side we've got 2/4 inch 20 threads as well as a rosette mount. I've also added this little textured grip tape. This is just because here in Australia it gets really hot and your hands get sweaty during a really intense focus pull moment. So this just gives me a little bit extra grip. You also notice I've got this little pin. This is really good because then I can attach it to a quick release on my belt, and no matter where I am on set I can always have my hand unit with me and I can immediately pick it up rather than having to run back to my stand, which might be on the other side of the set. Another benefit of having this little pin is that when I'm grabbing the remote, it actually integrates perfectly with my fingers right there. So it actually feels super comfortable, almost like it was designed for this. And yeah, my fingers wrap around and then my thumb lands perfectly with the buttons. It works out really well. On the back we've got another 2/4 inch 20 mount. And then on the bottom it's just a little port for putting our LPE6 batteries in. These are damn cheap. You've probably got a bunch of these from an old DSLR. Also, this hand unit barely uses any power because it's so simple in terms of its design. I've had one of these batteries last me a day and a half, maybe 2 days. If you ever used the original RT Motion hand unit, it's pretty similar in terms of design and layout. You've got a few extra buttons here, however, it's so much more comfortable pressing these buttons. So I think it's actually a blessing in disguise that rather than having this big screen like on a WCU4 that you're constantly distracted by, so in this tiny little one only shows you the most essential information, and yes, it doesn't show everything that you would like to at once or at the scale that we might be comfortable with. I've gotten used to it, and when you've got your monitor with all the on-screen readouts, you really don't need a big screen here. It looks like one big piece of aluminium, but it's actually really great. So as basic as it is, it's very solid.
Can we get Vicky and Vintoro left by a meter? Keep going, keep going.
Next we'll go on to our motor driver receivers. So this is to control all your motors and your rangefinder. First we've got the MDR.X. This was the first one that was released with the RT line. This has all the ports you could ever need. You've got 3 motor ports. You can use all 3, but you still have the option to daisy chain all your motors. You've got the in1 and in2 ports. This was originally for the iris roller and the zoom rocker, but if you've got a Cine RT focus bug system, you plug it in via one of these ports, and if you can afford that, lucky you. Now the downside of this MDR.X is that it is big. It's about the size of a credit card, and then when you have all the ports for all your different devices coming out of here, it doubles in size. So when cameras are getting small nowadays, like a Red Komodo, you're really struggling to find real estate on the camera where you can mount this. So that's a bit of a limitation. However, that leads perfectly into the MDR.S. This thing's been out for maybe 2 years or so. Here in Australia, it's about the size of a 50-cent piece, and it is amazing, particularly with some of the latest firmware that have really unlocked the potentials to match it with the MDR.X. It is amazing. The only catch with the MDR.S is that it has one motor port, so this kind of relies on you either daisy chaining your motors or only using one motor if you're using the Mark 3.1. I would say the biggest benefit of the MDR.S is, as you can see, its size. It is so lightweight. It really tucks out of the way. And yes, when you have the cables plugged in, obviously it does get bigger. They both perform just as well as each other, and the menu layout is exactly the same. Now we'll go into our motors. First up, we've got the Mark 3.1 motor. Now, if any of you use the RT motion system, this is the exact same motor, but essentially it's just been rebranded by Teradek since they bought them out. The motor port is on the side, so it's designed for a right angle cable. You can still use the straight motor cables that are compatible with all the different motor variations, but it's just something to keep in mind depending on what you have in your kit. This thing is amazing. As old as it is so reliable, and the torque is wonderful. Next in line, we've got the MOTR.X. Now, this one's a bit of an interesting one that when it released, it was damn good. However, it's been discontinued. There was a few manufacturing errors that came to light over time, and unfortunately Teradek pulled it from manufacturing, so that's a bit frustrating because the torque on this is, I think, the best out of all these motors. I had a feature a couple months ago that they were really old Panavision lenses. This was the only motor that I could turn the focus axis of those lenses. The benefit is that it's daisy chainable. You've got two motor ports, so either you can have another motor coming into one of these ports and out to your MDR, or you can have your TOF1 rangefinder coming in here as well. So it's really frustrating that the torque on this is the best out of all these motors, and it's been the most reliable for me when I've had super stiff old, say, Panavision lenses. This has been the only one that could turn those focus axes. So if you can find one, buy it. One thing I've added that unfortunately is also discontinued is this quick release option to change the gears from one side to the other. This was a third-party manufacturer, and it's been so helpful. It saved me so much time. So unfortunately, you'd have to buy that off another user if you wanted to get it. And last, we've got the MOTR.S. Now this one came out last year in 2023, and it's pretty damn good. It's designed as a bit of a lightweight motor. The mounting bracket is a little bit easier and much more sturdy. It's also daisy chainable with two motor ports. However, I think a benefit of this one is that the motor ports are pointing upwards. So a common thing for all cinematographers and DPs out there is that they want to put the camera right on the ground and get a nice low shot, and sometimes it stresses the motor cables of all our focus units. This pointing up saves a lot of grief. Another feature about this is that it's a little bit easier to change the gears compared to the previous two motors. It is one little screw on the inside, whereas it used to be three tiny little screws that we used to have to change. So that's a big improvement. One thing of note is that when I've been using this MOTR.S, I've been saving it for modern day cine lenses that are nice and smooth. The MOTR.X seems to be the only motor out of these three with high torque that's capable of turning super stiff lenses. And as much as this MOTR.S is the latest motor out there, the torque is not as great. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're looking at purchasing the RT system. And finally, we've got our TOF1 rangefinder. Now, if you look at the prices of competitor rangefinder systems online, this is tiny. Obviously, you get what you pay for. This is definitely not of the quality of a focus bug for sure, but for what it is, it actually works pretty well. It's got a 3-degree field of view, and it's actually pretty easy to put on top of your camera given its size. On the top, you've got your laser to see where you're pointing your rangefinder. On the rear, you've got a 1/4" 20 thread with small HD locking pins. I've got myself a little Upgrade Innovations adapter plate on here, just so I can put my quick release plates on here. On the side, you've got your cable port. This is what you either daisy chain straight into your motors or all the way back to your MDR. And finally, you've also just got another 1/4" 20 on the rear as well. One thing to note is that it's just simple. It does range finding. You can set the offset from the sensor plane. You get the readout on your small HD monitor, which is incredible. but it does not have the functions of an RE or a Cine RT system. So just keep that in mind, but I will highly advocate that it's been so helpful since I got it. Going against the grain and getting a lens control system that's not as popular definitely comes with its challenges. Rental houses don't know this system, some other ACs don't use it or have never used it, so your support base is much smaller. However, that's why we're doing this video, just to help everyone to try and be better if they're looking to buy it. Ari and Preston have been doing follow focuses for years, for decades. So of course they've got loads more experience in lens mapping, firmware, and even just function and design. Whereas Teradek, they bought out RT Motion and they're now developing their own. But it's only been a few years. I took that on board, that as much as I saved a lot of money getting this system compared to say a Hi-5, that unfortunately their custom support and then the firmware is definitely not up to par in comparison to Ari and Preston. So it's just something to take with a grain of salt, that as much as this does save you a lot of hassle and a lot of money in the bank, it does come with a lot of workarounds. The firmware was buggy when I first got it. It has improved, but it still has a long way to go. The biggest selling point for me was the Small HD integration. Because Teradek and Small HD are both owned by the same company, Creative Solutions, all their stuff is connecting and communicating with each other. Using your LEMO port from the top of your hand unit, you can connect straight to your Small HD monitor and it shows all your lens map data right in front of your eyes along with your rangefinder. It has been so helpful for me and so damn cool. I had a feature last year where we were shooting in very tight bedrooms. I couldn't be inside the room, and the actors kind of were doing a bit of improv. They had a lot of flexibility, so we didn't really know where they were going to go and what they were going to do. We were wide open and having such intense moments of not knowing what to expect. Having the on-screen display as well as my rangefinder saved me so much grief.
Here we go. Car can come on in action.
End of 2023, I had a feature film where alongside my Teradek RT, we had the REWC4 and the SXU. Both of those systems constantly had wireless issues. We were shooting alongside the coast and then right on the beach as well. And wireless issues are always going to play up, but my RT kept a signal the whole way through the shoot, whereas both RE systems constantly had dropouts. When I was looking at buying this system, I was getting, professional work, but I still wasn't at the income level to afford getting a Hi-5 or a Preston system. A lot of jobs that I do are very run and gun, diving right in the deep end and seeing what we get. So this price point was perfect for what I could afford, but it also achieved a professional level of working. Getting this has suited my needs so well. With the fast pace that we all work at now, this system has been so helpful. Particularly having that lens readout on my monitor has saved me so much anxiety. So as much as there are a few bugs in the firmware and there's still room for improvement, it doesn't have decades of experience behind it like the Ari or Preston systems. I think the benefits more than outweigh the negatives. So overall, I've been pretty damn happy. It's very well machined, all the stuff is well made, none of it feels cheap. Really, it's just time will tell. It's experience that Teradek still use behind their competitors, Ari and Preston. So it will just take time for things to just keep getting better and better. And in the year and a half that I've owned it, it has improved. The latest firmware that released end of last year in 2023 was amazing. It solved so many issues that the community had been begging for. So it's wonderful to see that they are listening. It just takes time. And as they see that more people are wanting to use it, they will get more support behind developing it. Overall as a system, it's professional and it's awesome. I've become a huge advocate for the Teradek RT system. I think it's punching above its weight in a lot of ways. The workarounds that the community and myself have discovered are not well documented, and Teradek themselves are not using it in the field. We are as ACs. So hopefully moving forward, these videos can help with just explaining a lot of the quirks and the benefits of this system. That's it for now, everyone. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to do a few more videos soon where I'll get into a bit more of the workflows and some sneaky tricks with this system. But if you've got any questions, give me a yell. See ya.